So what if I told you that the entrepreneurial mindset is the best tool to change the world? Would you believe me? Maybe. But after this speech, I hope that you at some level at least know why I'm saying it. I'm Rasmus Ekholm. We're currently working for Slush, one of the leading startup events and communities in the world. And we at Slush believe that the entrepreneurial mindset is the best tool to change the world. And even more now, when we are living in a world of exponential technologies enabling us to reach our 10-year goals in only a couple of years. And what I want to talk to you today is generally about Slush, why we went global, but more importantly, how we succeeded and what was the fuel behind that success. And in the end, I hope you get some idea on why engaging students matter, why a strong community is an asset, and how something small might grow into something meaningful. So let's start this journey then. As I said, Slush is one of the leading startup events and communities in the world. Our main event gathers around 20,000 people annually to Helsinki, and it gathers people from over 130 countries, which is almost the whole world. And we didn't stop at that. We have expanded our operations to other cities like Tokyo, Shanghai, and Singapore. And Slush is all about connecting the entrepreneurs with who and what they need. And on top of that, Slush is not only a place where people meet, it's also a platform for us to show the world what are the biggest issues at the moment. But more importantly, we want to bring a bit of hope into the game by having entrepreneurs telling how they are solving these issues at stake. And for you to get a better vision of how Slush works at its best, I'm going to tell you a story about these two gentlemen. The one on the right is Uma Valetti, the founder of Memphis Meat. And what Memphis Meat does is trying to revolutionize the meat industry. And how they do it is by taking cells out of real animals, bringing it back to the lab, and reproducing that cell, and this way creating artificial meat, which they say tastes as good and is as high in nutrient than real meat. So this is pretty awesome and could revolutionize the whole food industry in case it can scale to a global level. And the guy on the left is Steve Jurvetson, one of the most known venture capitalists in the US. And these two gentlemen managed to meet at Slush. And apparently the meeting went pretty well because a few months after Slush, there was an announcement that Steve Jurvetson, together with co-investors like Kimball Musk, Bill Gates, and Richard Branson, invested in Memphis Meat. So this is a beautiful example of how Slush can create value for entrepreneurs around the globe. And Slush wants to go to places where we can make impact, and that's the metric that we strive for. Because many people ask why Slush is any better from other types of events around the world. Well, firstly, we're a non-profit organization, which helps us to not limit our vision and goals around economical purposes only. And secondly, we ran by crazy young students like myself. And those are two elements that make Slush already a special in comparison to any other commercial event out there. So as I said, Slush wants to go to places where we can make the most amount of impact in the least amount of time. And this leads me to the next section of my speech, and it's the story of why we went global. So many people ask why we did go to these Asian cities and not, for example, the US or Germany or any other city around the globe. But as I said, impact is the measure for us, for our success. And as you may know, for instance, Japan, Tokyo, is still today one of the most closed-up economies in the world. And on top of that, failure is not looked as too goodly on a societal level. And on top of that, the young people in Japan don't think that entrepreneurship is a career choice for you. So we honestly think that Slush can provide a platform for the young people in Japan to to build a culture around entrepreneurship, and this way maybe in 10 years we see more companies coming out of Japan, more entrepreneurs, and we have a more open society as well. And what about China then, Shanghai? Well, we are also trying to build a culture of entrepreneurship in China, but as you may know, China is a huge opportunity for anybody of us who wants to do business in there, because there's a rising amount of middle class in China, and that brings a lot of opportunities for any type of industry. But what's lacking for the most part is the proper bridge between East and West. So Slush is trying to be that bridge between East and West for entrepreneurship and for innovation. And what about Singapore then? It has a completely different function from the two predecessors. And it's all about highlighting the whole region of Southeast Asia. Because, for example, if I want to go and see what are the biggest industries, what are the to-come industries in the Southeast Asian region, I need to go to all the places separately, which is really time-consuming and also resource-consuming. So what Slush is trying to do is build a center of gravity for the whole Southeastern Asian region. So and this way allowing investors, people to get a wholesome picture of the whole region at one stop, and this way hopefully creating more, allowing venture capital and other types of assets to flow to the region as a whole. And these visions we set for ourselves in these places are not easy tasks, and it requires time for us to reach our goals. But it's not about us, the Finns, going there to say what you need to do and how you need to change it. It's about us giving a platform for the young people, for the locals, to embrace entrepreneurship and create their culture around entrepreneurship, and not the Finns going there to build it. Now I walked you through what Slush is, why we went global, but the most important part of my speech is still to come, and it's the story on how we managed to get to this point and how we succeeded. So this is the picture of Slush in 2008. It was the first event we did, the first edition. There was nothing special about the event, no international crowd, nothing special there. But the spirit of Slush, the goals and visions were already in motion. So how did we get from this to this is a good question. But it has to do with the year of 2008 and what was happening in Finland during that time. So as you may know, the economical situation globally was not too good. There was a financial crisis going on globally, which Finland took a pretty big hit on. And on top of that, Nokia was falling apart. A lot of jobs were lost due to that. And as some of you may know, Nokia has been a cornerstone of the Finnish economy for a very long time. So when you take away that, there's a lot of fear and hopelessness in that atmosphere. And on top of that, the dependency ratio screamed for new jobs to be created if Finland wanted to survive in the future. And there was a research done by the Ministry of Employment who asked the students around Finland that how many of you think that entrepreneurship is a career choice? Well, the figure, or the results came in and the figure was 4%. And that's a really low number when you think that the country is in bad needs of new jobs to be created, and you only have a pool of 4% of all the students in the universities that actually think that I'm going to be the entrepreneur to build that next company, to provide those jobs to the people. So this was the base of Slush and why it was founded in 2008, to create more entrepreneurs, to create a culture around entrepreneurship. And these were the three main goals that we set for ourselves. First, to build a radically positive culture of entrepreneurship in Finland, this way making it more appealing and more attractive to young people to become entrepreneurs. And secondly, to profile the Nordics as one of the major technology hubs globally. This supports the first goal because when you have a huge amount of people that wants to become an entrepreneur, you have a region that is looked from a global perspective as a major player in that field. And thirdly, to make venture capital more accessible in the country, because as you may know, if you want to innovate, you want to create companies, you need funds to back you up. So that's why the third goal was set as so. So how do we do with these initial goals we set for ourselves? Well, the research I talked to you about was done again. They asked students around in the country in 2016, so 8 years after. And the results came in and was 20% of the students around in Finland wanted to become entrepreneurs, or at least thought that that is a career choice for them. So this is a huge bump in the statistics, and it tells you that there's been a cultural change in the mentality of young people in Finland. And did we help to make the Nordics look as a major technological hub globally? Well, since 2005, the Nordics have managed to produce 50% of the billion-dollar exits in Europe, even though we only represent 3% of the population. So I would say that the Nordics are looked as a major player in the technological sphere and the startup sphere. Did we make venture capital more accessible? Well, the number of investments have gone up year after year, and the whole region of Nordics is in a better position than it's ever been before. But how can an event create such an impact on a societal level, on a regional level? Well, I say it can't. It's not the event. It's another thing. And I like to call it the powerhouse of Slush, the fuel behind the success. And it's, simply put, it's the people. And this is a picture of Slush 2014. And what you see in the picture is basically the whole startup and innovation ecosystem in Finland. And what's special about that picture is that each and every one of those guys have given their time and effort to make Slush happen, to build Slush and push it forward. And it's a beautiful picture of people that don't only think about their individual success, but about the collective success. And that's the special sauce behind Slush and the success. It's the community that people want to give their time and effort to something that's collectively good and not only for their own intentions. But how did we create such a culture where people actually want to give their time and effort and not do something else that gives you more money and fame than being a volunteer at Slush or some other organization? Well, in 2008, when Slush was created, there was a student initiative called the Arcada Entrepreneurship Society that was founded as also. And that was the beginning of a grassroots movement in Finland. And in 2013, there was already 20 of these entrepreneurship societies across the country. And what these entrepreneurship societies do, they promote entrepreneurship in their local universities by creating events, programs, and other types of activities which help the local university across the country to build a culture around entrepreneurship. And for many students, these societies are the first touch to an entrepreneurial mindset, to entrepreneurship as a concept. And that's why it's so damn important, because by inspiring these young people, we end up having a startup ecosystem that keeps fueling itself with new, young, fresh ideas all the time. And in the end, we also end up having a national workforce that is more self-guided, and that's an asset to any company, from startup to corporate, and it's an asset for you in your private life as well. And without these entrepreneurship societies, we would never have such a blossoming startup ecosystem in Finland. These are a few organizations that have spinned off from these entrepreneurship societies. There's acceleration programs, there's incubators, there's exchange programs, hackathons, all types of events helping the startups, the entrepreneurs in Finland to go forward. And this picture sums it up pretty nicely. As you may know, there's always an iceberg and you can only see the top of it. But you know that the bigger mass is underneath and under the waterline. And the top represents Slush, and what's underneath represents all the other pieces that keeps the whole iceberg from not sinking. So it's the startup ecosystem that keeps fueling Slush, keeps fueling everything, and keeps the whole system together. So I've now walked you through what Slush is, why we went global, but more importantly, how we succeeded and what was the fuel behind that success. And if you listened at all, then you know that a strong community, and engaging students really matter when you're building a startup and innovation ecosystem in your country. But before I leave you, I want to give some takeaways for you for any problem or challenge you face in your work, in your private life. First, you need to have a bold vision, because with a bold vision, you're always gonna go further than with a mediocre vision. And secondly, you need to be community-driven. So whatever you do, don't do it only for your individual success, but also for the collective good, for the common good, at least at some level. And third, you need to pilot fast and kill fast. If you try and error, you keep yourself fresh and not getting stuck with useless projects that don't create value for you or anybody else. So if you're doing something that feels wrong, try it differently, try and error, and find your way. I'm bold enough to say that the entrepreneurial mindset is the best tool to change the world. Thank you.
Let me just ask you one question, and I give the floor to the audience. You started out talking about Tokyo, Singapore, and Shenzhen, I think.
Yeah.
And you said that, I think it was about Tokyo, that the more entrepreneurs and the more opportunities you give them, there'll be a more open society someday. And just wanted to ask you about the opportunism, your bright vision about this, because even that part of the world that takes pride in pluralism, open society, and democracy is having a lot of trouble at the moment.
Yeah, but the event has been running there for 3 years now. Gathers around 5,000 people. It's the only international startup event in the world. And there's a huge demand for an entrepreneurial way of thinking and a way of life. So at least at this point it's working, and I think, and what's super important is that the entrepreneurial mindset includes that there is no borders. You know, we exchange knowledge, we innovate together. It's not a matter of me taking the knowledge and keeping it to myself. It's about, you know, opening up and telling your story, telling your failures, telling whatever. Of course, it's a big vision, but
I totally agree with you. But how does China take it?
Well, it's been there for 3 years as well, so.
Okay, good luck.
And China is opening up bit by bit, and there's huge amount of companies from the West going into the Chinese market, so I think we're only following a trend here.
Let me let you ask questions from the lecturer. We have a question right here, 4th row.
Thank you for your great talk. Every time I hear about successful entrepreneurs, I have this feeling that there's a major selection bias, because we only hear from those who made it. And they always tell that it's very hard work, and at the end of the day, you will make it if you work hard. But there are many other entrepreneurs who work equally as hard, but they don't make it. Yeah. What do you think, what is the average success rate for a new entrepreneur?
Well, there's a saying, I think, that one out of 10 startups succeed. So it's a big number that fail, but we also want to showcase the failures, the work behind, you know, that you can put a lot of time for a company, but it doesn't work out. But that's the entrepreneurial mindset, that you don't give up. You keep following your vision differently. If it doesn't work that way, you do it another way. Of course, it's stressful, but that's kind of like the mindset I'm talking about, and you just need to embrace it and go forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's the most important cause behind stumbling? And is that related more to social, economical, political issues, or more individual or entrepreneur strategies?
Well, I think there's many factors that kind of like make a successful startup. It can be a political thing, that the environment you are in is more, it's better to support you and your success, but in the end I think it's the individual and the team that creates the company, and you can succeed in any place, because nowadays it's a global market. From day one you can start building a global product and not only stay in your own surroundings. So there's many possibilities to, for instance, Estonia. You can start your company there even though you're physically in, let's say, Brazil. So you can kind of put your company name and work from kind of that area and use the benefits from that country and the laws in there.
Or the other way around, you're physically in Estonia, but your company is on some island. But that was just a joke. Yeah. I didn't mean it. I seriously didn't mean it. Yeah. Let me give you back the floor, right there.
Thank you for your, Thank you for your presentation. I have three a bit disconnected questions. So the first is that is Finland, or the government of Finland, is supporting the startup companies in any special ways?
Definitely. Like if you have an idea or a company idea that's kind of going international, you almost instantly have a government-backed funding from Tekes, which is a organization that gives grants to new companies. So it's definitely easy to start a company, and it makes it easier to kind of try and error if this works. You don't have to use your own money to kind of try and error and then fail and live a miserable life after that. So it's definitely easier in Finland due to that.
Okay, thank you. The other is that you said that from this entrepreneurial mindset, from 4%, it was ramping up to 20. And what is the healthy number for that? I mean, if there are 100 students and 99 of them want to be an entrepreneur, then it
That's a good question. But it's not about creating entrepreneurs, it's about creating people that are more entrepreneurial. And for instance, if you work at a consulting company, it's an asset if you can think by yourself and take matters into your own hand. It's not only about creating a company. You can be a huge asset to any corporate if you're entrepreneurial and can think of alternative solutions and think outside the box.
Okay. The last one is about the, how can I say, financial way of working of Slush. So what's the model or the marketing model, how you keep yourself alive?
Yeah, so 50% comes from ticket sales, and the other half comes from partnerships with corporates, accelerators, and other types of organizations. And we're owned by a foundation called it's called the Startup Foundation. So there's a lot of startup organizations helping startups that is in the foundation. And if we make money, like profit, then it goes back to the foundation, which lays it out to the ecosystem, to other initiatives that needs money. So it's basically, that's the model.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask you to be a little more specific on what percentage of people would misuse the government funds that are given to them as startups? I'm just asking you this because in Hungary we have a very fashionable startup ecosystem too. You can start up your own political party with government funding, and a lot of people do start political parties and then they don't pay the money back.
Yeah, I don't actually have any data on that, but I think it came up that the Nordics have a trust society, which enables us to do these kind of things and just trust the people that they are good enough to not misuse what's being given to them.
Thank you. Questions up there?
Yeah, hi, thanks for the presentation, it was great. This question came up of how big % of entrepreneurs are succeeding. With a couple of friends of mine, I'm 1 in the 10. We just recently sold our firm to a Nasdaq traded software company.
Nice, congratulations.
And my question, so first of all, what I would like to say is that you guys here, go ahead and do your thing. Go ahead and start your company and try your best. However, all of you are going to need an economical cushion, right? So you will need funding. Here in Hungary, the European funds, so European free money, essentially majorly screwed up the startup ecosystem. So there's a lot of, it just went in the wrong direction. Yeah. The big question I have is, what did you see in Helsinki? So how does the funding start to flow for these startups?
Like from which kind of?
So what kind of sources? VCs, funds. So what did you see there? How did the ecosystem, the startup funding start up in Helsinki?
Well, nowadays there's wide varieties of ways of getting funded. There's like VC funds, government grants, other types of funding. But to answer like how it started out, like how it started to grow, I don't know. Kind of bringing international venture capital money, that was the like start of getting funding to the whole country. If I answered your question at all.
Okay, thanks. That's an important point. So you have to open and start bringing in international capital, right?
Yeah, that was kind of.
Then thank you very much for the presentation and for answering the questions.